Welcome to Writer Syndrome, a podcast about writing from start to finish. This episode's topic, launching a book into space. I'm Russ Capasso, and joining me as always is Tim Letney. Tim, how are you?
I feel like I am light years away from launching a book, but you're close.
I'm so close. So
maybe
close.
you can teach me what the heck to do.
I don't know. I can share the things that I think I should be doing and the things that I think I'm doing wrong.
You must be doing some just accidentally.
Yeah. Like this podcast, I guess, right?
There you go. Marketing.
I know you hate when I say this, but shipping any product, it's like, oh, making sure I have all my ducks in a row.
No, I hate your spreadsheets.
Oh, you hate my spreadsheets.
But I like it when you talk about your history as a product manager.
You hate my spreadsheets until you use them. And then you're like, you know what? These aren't so bad. I saw your spreadsheet, by the way.
It's very helpful. It's very helpful for editing.
Yes.
I built that myself, though. Okay,
you did.
Although
you did.
I think I had a mental image of what yours was like, though. So yeah, I'm on the spreadsheet train. Do you have a spreadsheet for your book launch?
I do, actually. I do.
What a surprise.
Yeah, not surprising at all. So
well, that's good.
Going through this process, like taking a step back and like, you do the Google search for like how to launch a book. And I look at this, I'm like, this is the same thing for when I was a product manager working with marketing teams and whatnot, right? It's like, here are the checklist items to do X number of months out before launch day, right? So it's like,
yeah,
it's always like 6 months before the launch, start promoting your book through like your newsletter to your subscribers. I don't have any subscribers yet. No one knows who I am. No one cares about who I am, right?
Do you have a newsletter?
I do. I have it set up. So you can go to russcapasso.com and sign up.
So you've got a website.
Yes, I do have a website.
So that's probably one of the things, like have an author website, make sure that you've got a landing page for yourself and your book.
Yep. 100%. I've got all those steps, making sure you have a newsletter sign up to get, obviously people signing up so you can keep them pulled in, and sending them something like once a month, updates on new books and stuff. Cause like those are going to be like, as I keep reading and researching, it sounds like the email newsletter is still a very powerful thing for authors. Because those people who are signing up, they're clearly on the line of being fans and they want to hear what's coming up and what you're working on next, right? You increase your chances of a sale through having your email newsletter.
And is the idea, right, that like you'd have a e-news website or podcast and that you're giving away some content or you're giving away some advice with the idea that you're kind of pulling people into an ecosystem and honestly like a pathway to purchase a book?
Yeah.
Or is it just out of the goodness of your heart?
Both, Tim, both. I want to share my experiences and pains of going through this process. But at the same time, of course, like that's kind of part of it, right? I mean, having some value or content you can provide to people to pull them in to then say like, oh, maybe I'm interested in this, the next step of what this person's providing. For me, it'd be like a book. So like, great. If someone listens to the podcast and like, oh, cool, I think I like what he has to say about stuff. Let me check out his book. The most interesting kind of stepping back from all this is all these different things you can do. They suggest like 6 months out, start promoting book covers. And so I didn't have my cover done, ready to go 6 months ago. I had a good idea what it was going to be, but I didn't have it ready, website, all that stuff. That was pretty easy. Building a social media platform. I think you and I are somewhat similar in this category where me personally, like, I loathe the idea of trying to build a social media platform. And like, I don't know if that's, and I think that's okay. I mean, there's a lot of conversation of does social media actually, is there, return on investment on that for book sales? Again, have specific goals. Is it to sell books or is it to get people to go and sign up for your newsletter? Like making sure you have clear goals so you know what you're doing when you're going to do these things. And I think that was something I wasn't sure about yet. So I didn't dive into any of them because I was like, well, am I just doing this just for book sales? Or am I doing this to build kind of quote unquote like a fan base of some sort or pull people in? And if they happen to buy a book, great. I mean, obviously at the end of the day, that is the end goal, but long term, when I write book 2 or book 3, I'd love to have those people on my newsletter. So if they don't they can see that progress. And when updates come out, they're like, oh, here's, I'll check out this book, and oh, this author has a first book. Well, let me check that out. Some of the key things I've been thinking about. A lot of them that I haven't been doing though yet, and I'm trying to decide which ones are the most important things for me to do for launching. And I was so concerned about having all the formats ready. Like, I don't need to have the audiobook ready day one. That can come out a couple months later.
So you're definitely doing an audiobook too.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do one.
Cool.
That'll probably come out a couple months later from after the launch. hopefully. But I think the other thing too, I've been finding, there's a lot of, they're like, oh, 3 to 4 months out, get your book out to like ARCs, the advanced review copies, get them out to reviewers. And that one I think that would be that's obviously very important. And now when I'm having a tough time kind of.
So that's 3 to 4 months in advance of you launching it publicly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of like a hindsight thing, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no way you're going to do it this time.
No. And
maybe next time.
Yeah. And it's like, and this is probably a misstep on my part. Like I'm at this point now where I just want to get this book out and I don't want to wait another 6 months to like.
And you could, right? You could finish
Absolutely.
it. I mean, and you could sit on it.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I guess the question is,
feels like a sneeze I'll never get out though. Like I want to get this thing out and work on the next book, It's like,
so it's like a motion verse approach. Like, objectively that maybe you should sit on it and wait and,
yes.
Start doing some ground marketing. But personally, you're like, I just need to get this thing done so I can move on to the next thing.
Yes. Yeah. Like that's where my mindset is at. And if I don't know if that's probably not the right way to do this, but for me, it's the way it's.
Yeah, but it's your way. I think that's okay.
Yeah, it's going to keep me sane, And I think it's also
going to keep you going. I mean, once again, we talk about every inch momentum. Of the way. Totally, it's all about momentum, right? So, and that's not nothing.
Yeah, and that's something to sit back and think about. Like, yeah, I could sit there another 6 months and then go through this checklist of all these things and start pushing these things, and then like I hate the idea of spending 6 months doing like a ton of work towards just the marketing and everything and all these bits and then what's the return on that, and it's tough because like as a first time author I have nothing else published in my mind. I think the best strategy for me is to get this book out, keep the momentum going, and then start doing these things to that, because like going into a second book I'll have a great idea of when I can get it done. I've gone through this process once. Now I see where I can write a first draft in 2 months, 2.5 months. I can get it edited in like a month. I can go through my revisions in like a month or 2 months. You know what I mean? So it's like, I got a tighter timeline. I could say, I can get this book out by spring of 2024. Now it's like I hit that 6 month mark. I can start doing these things with a little more focus on them. Because I think this time it was just me like, how do I write a sentence, or what are my characters doing? Like that was my biggest concern. Cause at the end of the day, obviously doing all of this launch stuff, social media, it doesn't matter if the book sucks. So right, it's like at the end of the day, like if the book sucks, like no one's gonna care. So
I mean, I can totally like relate to the idea of like I just want it done so I can move to the next thing. I'm constantly pulling, and I mean I've edited the heck out of my book. Like this is my 5th edit. I have at least one more. I want to make sure it's as good as it can be, but in the same respect, I want to start writing a new story. I want some new characters. I want new experiences. So I mean, I feel you. I feel like that, the urgency.
Yeah, just like getting it complete. And it's been a while. I've been working on this for a long time now, and I'm ready. But I think I'm done. I'm ready. I think there's, again, I think. Maybe there's someone else who's a first-time author who is, maybe way more aggressive and into doing these things and can do these really well. And I've reflected enough on my own skill set to know, like I'll get spread thin, and I won't do these things to the point where I'm happy with them. And that's what I don't want. I don't want to just do something half-assed. And that's why I was like, you know what? Social media, let's narrow it down. Okay, sure. Advertising. You can go to BookBlub, you can go to Amazon ads, you can run Facebook ads. I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on one platform, Facebook, because that's got, as I keep reading, that's got a great return for, the slicing you can do for your demographics. So it's like, let me focus on those things, get the book out there, and I'm okay with like a longer tail type of launch, right? Because I think that's okay. Like, obviously having a bunch of noise about it on day one is great, but if that noise disappears at day 2, no one's going to care.
Right.
I planned out ad campaigns for Facebook over like the next year. So it's like, all right, what do I want people to do? Well, initially we'll drive awareness of the book, get people to my website, get people sign up for newsletter, sell a couple copies. Right. And then I'm changing that campaign every 3 months to kind of reflect maybe the state of where the book is and sales are. So
did you set a budget, or is the budget based on income from the book?
I set a budget. I think I had like a total monthly budget of just like, I haven't played enough with the ads yet, so I don't know. I know like the Amazon ones, like it's kind of pay as they click type of deal.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so you can put as much money as you want into it, and obviously that'll change, obviously your impact. Facebook, it's like I can load up like $100 and kind of run with that in a month, play around with tweaking, and that will still have an impact, or $50 a
Yep.
month is still something. So that's still kind of TBD. I think in my mind, I'm like, let me just start with like $100 a month, and we'll kind of go there. Just play around with Facebook ads. Let me get comfortable just making the ads, setting demographics, and seeing what the impact is.
Yep.
And then changing those over the year or every 3 months just to see, what works best.
You know what it reminds me of a bit of our about like you honing in on platforms. It reminds me of our goals episode, whereas you can't have too many.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can have too many, and the more you have, the less effective you are.
Yes.
Across all of them, right? Yep. And I remember after that episode, I sat down myself and I was like, "What are my goals?"
Yeah.
Knowing full well I can probably do 2 of them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And otherwise I'm just, spreading myself way too thin. So it's interesting that relates to the marketing as well. Like, yeah, you can be on every platform, not effectively. You can be spread thin and probably get less return because of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think I got so caught up in like reading all these 6 months, 3 months, a year before, 1 month before launch. I got so caught up in all those tasks and like the checklist and all this sort of stuff. My brain was like melting at the thought of having to do all of this by myself. And that's when I was like, you know what? I don't need to do all this. Just take.
And if you want to have a long tail, if you don't want just one spike in the beginning of sales, and you want to have like a steady amount across, then I think you're going about it wisely, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and it's also the first book. It's going to be a test. Like, this isn't going to be perfect, and I'm going to learn as I go to see what works for me that I can, that again comes back to what you're saying of like, I also don't want to feel disingenuous about these things I'm doing. I don't want to just have like an automated tweet that I'm like, put up every 6 hours, say, buy my book, like I want.
But you know what? I got to tell you, like, my hesitation is bullshit.
Well,
like if you're making art and you want people to see it, I think that's something I need to wrestle with, right? Like the authenticity of it, because it's the people who sell and the people who are successful, not to say they're shameless, but they don't hesitate to talk about themselves. They don't hesitate to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
So I the last thing I want is to like influence you about authentic. Like you were authentic when you wrote your book.
I thought about this before you even mentioned it, and because I did, because like even thinking about like what am I going to do on Twitter? Like I don't feel comfortable there. I don't feel.
I mean, I wrestle with that and have like just with because that's what social is anyway. Take away the product.
Yeah,
we're all kind of sort of marketing different aspects of our life and highlighting certain things.
Yeah,
it's one of the things that completely turned me away from it because it was just it was this veneer or this like inauthentic slice of life that was meant to like, I don't know, not breed jealousy, but at least brag a little bit.
Yeah.
So but to me, it's different. Like if you did a thing, like you worked your butt off for over 2 years on this thing, that's worth more than my avocado toast picture,
I don't know. Avocado toast is pretty good. I think it comes back to what you just said, just kind of reinforcing that, like the goals episodes is a great point. Like seeing the goal, like what are your goals for this, and looking at all the things that you can do to promote your book and picking the things that make sense for you at the end of the day.
Yeah. If you want to be read, I think be okay selling it. I mean, it's something I need to wrestle with, but you can't just be like I am my whole life, like cutesy on the sideline, not doing it. You kind of got to step in and be your own best advocate and not wait for somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I kind of feel like one of the reasons why I'm like, I want to be traditionally published is because I'm like, I don't want to do that. And I'm learning more and more that the traditionally published route, you have to anyway.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
You still need to be your own advocate. You still need to sell your own book. You still need to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
You can't just, hide like the authors of old and hope that people read you.
Yeah. I mean, you could if it's not your goal. If it's not your goal.
If you don't want to sell, right? No, but I just want to be praised from afar. I want people to see a black and white image of me.
Yeah.
And that's all. I want the mystique of author. I don't want the author during the age of social media.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want the author in the age of AI.
Oh, boy. That's going to be a whole nother topic we're going to be chatting about someday.
I feel like another piece of this, right? In addition to setting a day and having a website and having social and doing an ad campaign
Yeah.
is like a book launch. Are you planning
Yeah.
on a book launch, like an in-person,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Actually,
smash the champagne and launch the sucker?
yeah. Smash the craft beer all over the place. Yeah, actually, that was like kind of like the big thing, and it kind of sparked another idea. So if there's any other authors out there, keep listening. Yeah, I'm going to do a book launch party,
Nice.
and that'll be like, friends and family. And actually, the local brewery in my neighborhood was like, you should have it here, like do it here.
Oh, that's awesome. What's the brewery?
Remnant Brewing in Somerville. They make awesome beer, and I'm down there quite a bit. And I wrote a lot of this book there, so they're like, "Yeah, you should do it here. Just have like the party here." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, that'd be great."
That's
So
cool that you wrote a lot of the book there.
yeah, well, word count and beer count kind of have like there's a chart where like word count goes down as beer count goes up. But yeah, I wrote.
Okay. You probably introduced a lot of things for your editor to take care of when you were there. Well, that's cool that they're in your corner. It's cool that you can have it there.
Yeah.
I'll definitely come up for that. That's cool, man.
Yeah, and that kind of sparked another idea of another part of like, okay, once you launched a book, that's not done. You're not done, right? You're not done promoting it, and there's always these, get into bookstores and do readings and stuff like that. And I've heard the nightmares about doing that, where people like set these things up and like no one shows up, and you're sitting there just reading.
Dude,
your
I've
own
seen
book.
a lot of social posts lately. Maybe because I don't know, the algorithm's hitting me, but it's just a lot of sad authors and pictures of empty chairs.
Yeah, and like
But I'll tell you what, that pity party, no offense to that, when that happens,
yeah,
but on social, there's impact.
yeah,
Like, nobody shows up to your book reading, but then you kind of feel sad online and people rally around you.
yeah.
So I'd say, just like everything, like take the loss as a learning experience and just drive through it, because it might turn into engagement somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm also want to change like the idea of that book tour, that book reading process, because I don't want to do that. Why would I want to do that? Why would I want to go into a bookstore and read to no one? That sounds sad.
Here's the crazy thing. I don't like marketing. I love the idea of going to like a bookstore or a library and reading, but it taps back into like,
yeah, good.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I was gonna picture you with like your tea and like your scarf and like.
Oh yeah, totally. I used to go to like poetry readings and book readings when I was in undergrad, so it reminds me a little bit of that. But I guess that's the erudite thing, like come listen to me. But you know what? If nobody comes, I'll just take a picture and put it online.
And no one. I'll be there. I'll be in the back row.
You'll be there.
Single
You're gonna come down to Jersey.
Yeah, so like single clap. Again.
More.
Chapter 2 again. Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for creativity for once a book comes out. I mean, obviously the bookstore book readings is still a thing. I don't know if I'm too into it, so I'm gonna try and come up with some other ideas for like once the book launches, like throughout the year, because like once you launch a book, you gotta keep promoting it.
Did you look into like based on metrics or analytics, the best times of year to launch?
Yeah, I did a little bit of that a while ago. But yeah, I mean, typically like the springtime before you hit the summer crowd is big. There's even breakdown based on the types of books and when to send them, right? Holidays, obviously people are buying books for gifts. Not necessarily that people are reading them, but a lot of sales, buying them. And there's certain types of books during that time. I think like more mysteries and stuff like that. The romance thrillers are pretty big for the summer, obviously, like the blockbuster read, or there's the beach reads.
Oh, right, the beach reads,
yeah. So like aiming for springtime felt pretty good. I also just like the springtime, so I was like, yeah, this feels like a good time. Feels like a natural time for me to like really release the book. So in a nutshell, I don't. There's not much else. I've like I said, I've kind of narrowed my biggest thing now is figuring out this the advanced review process. Mm-hmm. There are some like legit, again, as self-publishing, going to like a known publication to or service or group like New York Times, Stanley McCobb, they're not going to read a self-published book, or highly unlikely unless the thing is already really popular, right? Mm-hmm. So going to them is going to be kind of a waste of time. I think there's other review groups out there who are expanding their parameters or threshold to include self-published authors now.
Yeah.
There's I'm blanking on, there's one like the San Francisco Review, I think is what it's called. There's another one in what's it called? The Kirkus, I think. Like those are pretty big, I think, book reviewing like groups, publications, and they're expanding out to like accepting self-published.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, which is cool. There's limitations to some of them that I'm finding. Like one was like the book has to be published, and then the review has to happen, or you have to submit the review within 90 days from once it was published. So some interesting kind of parameters around some of them. So if you are going to look, if you're self-publishing, you're doing some of these advanced reviews, there's tons of resources and directories to go to and look through. And I found a couple that I'm going to approach, but also like. Now I'm in a stage of like finding bloggers or people who are writing for certain websites like pop culture, authors for writers for like space.com, or finding like the niche blogs where the readers would probably be interested in my book, and approaching them and being like, oh, I saw you reviewed such and such pop culture thing for this website. I'll send you a copy of the book. Would you be open to reviewing and, doing a write-up about it? So that's kind of like the step I'm at now, which is like, it's a little daunting. But
what about I feel like this feeds into that. I'm sure it's on your radar. What about like podcasts? There must be podcasts for independent reviews. I bet they have independent authors on.
Yeah, I know it's a great one. I did find a couple of podcasts I'm gonna approach. There's one called I think Whiskey and Words, where they like do whiskey tasting and talk about books and book reviews.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I found them a while ago. I'm gonna reach out to them. I don't know what their threshold is for, self-published versus not. But it's like, hey, I'll send you a copy of the book. Take a look at it. See that it's legit.
Hey, send them a bottle of whiskey.
And a bottle of,
yeah.
Yeah, that's an expensive $60, $70. How many copies of the book I have to sell, Tim, to cover that bottle of whiskey? You're going to have to buy 10 more. But yeah, there's definitely podcasts out there, and it's just a lot of legwork. I've got a great spreadsheet that includes all of like, the different types of, groups and people I'm going to reach out to. And that's going to be like
nice. Pretty
much the next step once I get the cover art kind of finalized and get some proof copies in. Just reaching out. But again, that's the timing of those things. Like I can't send something to someone and be like, hey, can you review this, and expect them to do it in like a week. That's not going to happen, right? And I think I'm okay with that.
This is kind of maybe more on the crowdsource side of things. But I feel like when I come across, whenever I'm curious at a book, or I'm at the library or something, and I'm like curious how something landed, and granted, these are traditionally published books, but the two things that I tend to come across most when I'm Googling are Goodreads reviews, honestly, and like Amazon reviews and the Amazon author profiles.
Okay.
Are you setting up an Amazon author profile?
Yeah, definitely. But you can't do it until the book's published. So, but yeah.
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah. So like it's Amazon Author Central or something like that. So you publish your book and then you go claim the book and you say, yeah, this is me, this is my book. And then that's when you can build your author page. So yeah, I'll have like an author page all set up.
And Goodreads, honestly, it's very crowdsourced. It almost never feels like, how Amazon will kind of like, you can tell, not just with Amazon products, but obviously with some of the books, that they're either, paid reviews or friends reviews or free copy reviews.
Yeah.
So there's like some marketing element to the Amazon reviews. It feels like Goodreads to me feels brutally honest. And maybe because it's divorced from a sale.
Yeah.
It's very much like user generated, and people aren't afraid to be very critical.
Yeah. Even though it's owned by Amazon, you can click right through Goodreads to go to Amazon to buy a book.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Goodreads is owned by Amazon?
Oh yeah.
Oh geez, I had no idea, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting too, like going through and finding review bloggers and reviewers. I found like a list, like this directory, and I was like, you can punch in thriller and, whatever, science, sci-fi, and it'll narrow down a list. And I was going to like people's websites and like, yeah, I do reviews. Most of them are free. Some might charge, but most of them are free. And they're like, yeah, I'll post on Goodreads. I'll do a review on Amazon, blah, blah, blah. And like everyone I kept clicking on from like a couple of these services, like not accepting, review copies now, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, is this accurate? Like, I don't like, it was like a dozen or so I went through like trying to find this. I'm like, this is becoming now like a waste of my time,
Right.
It's like, I know I need to put the legwork in here, but I'm like, I need to just work on something else,
Can I ask one question before we kind of move on to what we're watching and reading? Has this pragmatic portion of the process affected the creation process? Like, do you feel split between too many things, like to be able to effectively write the next book? Or can you do both? Can you push all things forward at the same time, the creative and the product launch?
At first, it definitely impacted the creative because I needed to change my brain. And these are things that like I've never done any of these things before. So I think I was more focused on learning what all these pieces are. What is everyone suggesting here? Let me learn about them, figure out what they are, and kind of set my own goals. So it definitely pulled me away because I was doing not only planning but also learning at the same time. And
Yeah.
I think initially I took on, I'm going to do all of this stuff and I got to do this 6 months out. All right. Yeah, cool. And then I'm like, no. Let me shave this down to something that fits within what I can handle. So I think like now it's a bit better. Now I got it under control, what I want to do. Now getting better at like kind of balancing, like tackling these things. It's like, okay, what's the task I got to handle? Making sure I'm still sticking with the creative and writing every day and focusing on like, what's the next book and picking away at that while I'm, kind of doing this. I got to be careful of like how much I obviously I want to have a decent splash and I want to focus on doing this stuff correctly or the best I can for the first book so I can learn about it. And then next book, I'll say like, what can I do? What should I have done better, differently instead of getting to the second book and being like, what did I do? So I think just keeping tabs on the things that I am choosing to do and keeping an eye on like, are they having an impact that I expect and why didn't they, or and how could they for the next time around? So.
Because from afar, it seems like you've had a moment while all this is going on, you actually had a fair amount of inspiration to create.
Yeah.
Because I know like you were throwing some, you had some outlines and some beat planning and what's happening with, I think you've got 2 or 3 books kind of spinning in your head right now. And I didn't know if you'd been able to focus enough to push those forward or if it's just kind of the ideation process right now.
Still the ideation process. I think I'm still like very early with like some plotting out for one book. And then all of a sudden I had some ideas for a second book and I was like, oh, this is going to work. And I was like, wait a second, that's not the book for this character. And I was like, I got to change that around. And it's still very much just like throwing all the pasta on the walls and seeing what sticks and kind of spinning ideas together. And like now I'm like, oh, I feel really good about kind of like the story and my antagonist and like kind of again changing the things I was doing with the first book, my process and thinking like, let me make this antagonist interesting. Like, what is his motivation? You know what I mean? So shifting and I haven't lost that. And I definitely shifting more into trying to do like a 50-50 here where I'm still creating and working through while doing all this other fun, exciting
what it sounds
stuff.
like? It sounds like you've got too many goals.
Yeah. You know what? My goal should be launch the book. Second goal should be write the next one.
Yeah.
So
because I know you're like just putting the absolute finishing touches on the book right now. You're like you're 99% done.
Yeah.
But it's not done. And then you're planning this launch, which in and of itself is
it's a whole nother
huge.
Animal. Yeah.
And then planning the next 1 to 2 to 3 books.
Yeah.
It sounds like one of those restaurants that you walk into that has like sushi and pizza and lasagna
and tacos. And you're like,
tacos.
Pick
and you're
one
like,
and be good at it.
Pick one. It's too many options.
Yeah. I don't want sushi, taco, pizza either.
Actually,
this whole book thing doesn't work out.
Sushi, taco, pizza. All right.
Pizza. So what do you, we're done with that. That's it. We're shipping this into space. What are you reading and watching?
I don't have loads to share, so I'll just say very briefly. I'm still kind of split between my Anne Rice and McCarthy. I'm still reading The Crossing.
Okay.
Which is the second one of McCarthy's Border trilogy.
Oh, so you finished All the Pretty Horses?
I finished All the Pretty Horses.
Okay.
It was awesome.
Okay, good, because I just got it. I just got it from the library, so I'm going to be reading that next.
I absolutely loved it. It's these books are so dry that the smallest bit of humor or like levity or like quirky dialogue elicits like a laugh out loud moment for me.
Yeah. I got a good example of that too, but yeah.
The Crossing is very much in the vein of All the Pretty Horses. And which makes sense. I think that there's these 3 books. I forget what they are. I know it's All the Pretty Horses, The Crossing, and I'm spacing on the last one. But it's the same world. It's the same time period. I think eventually, like every book stands on its own, but I think eventually some of the characters begin to meet. I will say one thing about The Crossing is that sometimes it feels like, I don't know how to say this correctly, but Cormac McCarthy is pretending to be Cormac McCarthy. Like, I think he's found his style. And he knows that he uses and like his toolbox is beginning. Maybe it's just I'm getting more familiar with his toolbox, but it's standing out more.
Yeah.
Just kind of like when a band finds their sound, it's like, oh, there's that guitar sound, or these are the notes they're hitting. Like I hear his notes and they're standing out more. and it takes me out of it a little bit, I think, because sometimes like the metaphor or the similes, they're not landing as well as
Yeah.
the first books ones did, because they're hard to picture for me. And some are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a wonderful writer. It's just I was completely engrossed in the first book. I'm maybe a little more pulled back from this one. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. I mean, it's still early days. I'm probably only 100 pages in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that spell will continue to, as the trust is built, like, because it took a while, right? And all the pretty horses to kind of understand where the story's going. And it's the same way with this book, is there's a lot of mystery. And
Yeah.
so with all the pretty horses, like at the end, I was like, oh, that's where it was. Here's the arc. But when I was in it, I had no idea
Yeah.
where these characters are going to land. And there's some excitement in trust building. And I think I'm still in the kind of trust building phase with this book. But I think I'm in good hands. And then the Anne Rice stuff, I hate to be hard on Anne Rice because was a very talented author, but it's tough. I'm reading The Vampire Lestat. The character does a complete 180 from the character that she introduced in Interview with a Vampire.
You mentioned that like when we were just chatting offline there before. Yeah.
Yeah, so she introduces this idea of the unreliable narrator, when thinking back. So now, like, this main character, Lestat, who is like the Tom Cruise character in the movie, is saying that the narrator of the first book was unreliable, which in a way, to me, undermines the first book and makes me doubt the veracity of the narrator in this book.
Yeah.
So it's hurting my suspension of disbelief a little bit. So I still want to go through it because I'm still kind of looking at comps for, Vampire Tales. And I'll probably stop after this one. I may read Twilight.
Oh.
I feel weird even saying that. And Joel's like, yeah, go read that romance novel. And I was like, I need comps. Like, I need kid vampire comps if I'm going to move into this next story or not, and see if it's worth writing or not. So we'll see. Otherwise, I mean, that's about it for what I'm reading. How about you?
Cities of the Plain, by the way, that's the third book in the Porter trilogy.
So I think that's the one where I think the protagonists of the first two meet.
Okay. I think last time I was reading Sutri. We're both on a very Cormac McCarthy kick, it seems, lately.
I'll tell you, it's helped me edit. I'm like, cut all this out.
Cut all this fat, right?
Cut everything out.
I read that one. I finished that one. For me, it was like the most boring, beautiful book I've ever read. It's just stuff happens to this character, and he's just kind of living life. Some of it was pretty interesting. The writing was obviously it's fantastic, and like the way he describes living in a houseboat is fantastic. But I just found it was just like a little. It was kind of like slow for me. But then I immediately picked up No Country for Old Men, and that is fantastic. Like that was. I'd seen the movie, but it had been long enough where I kind of remembered some things. Of course, it's tough because like now, having seen the movie and then reading a book, like I can picture all the characters as the actors from the movie. But I thought that was fantastic, and kind of tying to your point of Cormac McCarthy, kind of some of his dry humor or lines in there, you start cracking up about, and like. He has that No Country for Old Men, and it's Sugar, like the hitman there or whatever. He's got some of these lines in the book that like some of them were in the movie, but some are in the book. I'm just like, I think he's joking, but it's so dry, it's funny anyways. Or like, I think he's not joking, but yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. I also didn't piece to maybe I can't remember exactly the movie structure entirely. I mean, it was pretty close to the book. I think there's definitely some scenes in the book that aren't in the movie, but the book is definitely from the sheriff's perspective, right? It's like Tommy Lee Jones, like he's kind of like the guy running through and talking about how this country isn't for old men anymore. But yeah, love that one. Definitely felt like he hit kind of like a stride in terms of the McCarthy style, his own style.
Yeah. I read that so long ago, and I read it after I'd seen the movie. In fact, I think I had like the book that had the movie cover on it that they merged to me. I think I need actually to reread and rewatch because they're one and the same in my head.
I mean, the Coen brothers, the movie is fantastic. Like, I mean, there's no doubt. It actually got me excited to like rewatch the movie. But yeah, so finished that, both those books, fantastic. Enjoyed No Country much, much more. Sutri was kind of got into a slog, but again, beautifully written. So it's like a literary poetic kind of, style to it, where No Country is definitely a little bit more leaner. in its writing and style.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it says that Sutri was semi-autobiographical, so
Yeah,
I guess your critiques are about his life.
yeah, pretty boring.
Pretty boring.
Live on a houseboat, go fishing, getting drunk with his buddies pretty much every day.
Could you pick out the beats? Were they present? Was there like a 3-act structure to it that was, I mean, it's probably there.
It's the yeah, it's there. I think there's definitely major moments because it takes place, I think, over quite a while. Yeah, there's definitely like kind of like the big moments that the character has, and yeah, you could definitely call out the beats. I couldn't recite them right now, but I can see them in my head like as I'm thinking through the book and like the structure and kind of like the bottom of the barrel moment and then getting into the third act. But
What's interesting about the Border trilogy so far is that at least the 2 books one that I've read and one that I'm reading is that, and you wouldn't expect it, they're really about like love, love of your friends, of your relationships, of the countryside, of nature, of family. There really is this kind of like beautiful romantic view of what it's like in like Texas into Mexico. Love of language. There's so much of it that's in Spanish, which you wouldn't expect usually, because then there's these like moments that are punctuated by violence kind of out of nowhere. But yeah, no, they're wonderful books.
And then I just started. I feel terrible for saying this, but I'm just catching up on reading. I didn't read a lot when I was a kid, so I'm catching up. But I just started Michael Crichton's Timeline because I wanted to do some more time travel-y kind of stuff. That's a multi-universe kind of plot going on there.
Okay.
I'm probably about a third of the way through. I have not read any other Michael Crichton books, so I know.
Really? I swore that you would have before writing Host.
Yeah, no, I did not. And he's been on my list for a long time. I got like a whole bunch of books, obviously Jurassic Park and all the other ones, was it Sphere, I think is one of another big ones of his or something. Yeah, but I got a couple on the list, and this one popped up first. So I was like, there's a little time travel thing going on here, or multi-universe stuff going on, so check it out. It's definitely very plot driven. There's a million characters already, and it's so interesting to like going from reading No Country for Old Men, where Cormac McCarthy, he's not going to give you a description of what someone looks like or tell you how old he doesn't care. Like, sure, you can pick, like, he's got some descriptions
occasionally,
right, and it'll come in through here and there. Crichton, it's like as soon as a character, it's like he's got a template. It's like character name, age, what they look like, blah blah blah. Here's a whole exposition about who they are.
Like
and I was like,
it's like a rap sheet.
Yeah, and I was like, did you just take this from like your profile? You did the character and just plop it in here. And I was like, this is so much exposition about a character. Everyone that's introduced is like this. I don't know how his other books are, but
is it through like any character movement? Like, he mussed up his brown hair, or like, or is it all just like, this is how the person looks?
This is it. Boom. Like, just drops like description of them and even gives you like a little backstory about them. I was like, and he does it for every character. He's got like 20 characters in like the first like 15% of the book. And I'm like, I'm not even
300 pages.
Yeah. I mean, the book itself is like 500 pages. And I'm like, holy smokes. And there's a ton of exposition. And I'm getting through like now kind of exposition about the science of how this works. And it's like
Did you find yourself skimming? I'm curious. Did you skim those character descriptions once you kind of caught on that it kept happening?
I kept reading through the details because I just wanted to see, if he's going to keep doing this way.
I'll tell you, I catch myself skimming Vampire Lestat, and then I go back and reread it because I don't know, the spell isn't cast.
But I'll tell you though, a lot of those characters, I probably couldn't regurgitate what they look like or anything like that because it just felt like I've got a list now of like numbers and hair color and that's it. I'm like, I forget. Because it all came out so much at once, it's like having 10, 12 characters all described like one after another. I'm like, I still don't care.
It's like you need to take notes on it, like Russ,
right?
Glasses. Interesting.
So I thought that was really interesting. A ton of exposition. Obviously, he gets a little more into technicality and technology of his plots. And I was even reading. I kind of went down a rabbit hole of like reviews some of his books, and most of the reviews are like, his characters are just kind of. Nah, but he's just known for the plot, I guess. But
yeah,
this is just my take on like the first third of a book I've read for the first time. So
then we talked before, like I don't know how many episodes ago, but story versus plot. So he's heavy on the plot. Do his characters push the plot forward, like their story? Like
yes, I mean,
do their characters inform what's happening, or is the plot just
the plot's kind of the plot's kind of just moving along, like
Okay.
events are happening. The characters, I mean, they are kind of some, like, I guess it's really being driven by, I think he's the antagonist. Basically, he's the tech CEO, super genius guy who came up with this technology.
Mm.
And he comes across as like kind of just like a brash, asshole CEO guy, right? I'm smarter than everyone else in the room type of thing. But in an event, something happens, and then, he's now kind of pushing things along for his own goals, right? And he's kind of pulling
Mm.
people in. So yeah, I guess there's a character kind of pushing along the plot, but like I'm just wondering, like, oh, how do they time travel around? Where is this guy? This guy that we introduced in the very beginning, who's now dead. Why did he? That's the question, right? That's like the kind of the setup, and then it jumps to another group of characters of like 5 or 6 characters, and there's another event that happens. A lot of exposition, but I will say, even though there's a ton of exposition and it's very plot technology heavy, right now, like reading it, I don't feel like an idiot. You know what I mean? It's not like reading
Mm.
like an Andy Weir book where it's just kind of like, all right, man, yeah, cool, you did your research. It's got a good flow to it, so it's like I'm cruising through it, even though it gets into the technical aspects of it, but it's like it moves along. So like the pacing and the writing is very just easy.
Yeah.
I find
I've never read
interesting.
any Crichton, but I always like, obviously it's always in the periphery, kind of like Dan Brown. And it seems like,
Yeah.
I mean, they're beach reads, but they're thick beach reads.
Yeah, I mean, and also it probably explains why how many of his books have turned into movies. Like these authors, where it's like heavy plot driven, pretty written very cleanly,
Hmm.
and not overly complicated, or they have the ability to kind of burn down some of like the complicated things to make it easy, just so you can cruise through on the beach. So yeah, so that's it. That's what I'm reading, watching, not watching anything.
Watch the original Blob. I'm happy I watched and the remake.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I mean, since it's a creature feature. And
yeah,
since my book is a creature feature, I wanted to like see where I was landing. But I'm so happy I watched those after
yeah,
I finished because I think I think like the Blob and Chud and the Blob remake, they all kind of live in my subconscious.
yeah,
So there's moments of my book that like feel very similar. It was so weird to like go back to these movies after, I don't know, 30 years or something
yeah,
and be like, I can't believe this lives in my brain.
yeah.
I haven't seen this in so long, and yet there's so many moments
Just like
like
just
from
kind of
my book that are,
stored in the back of your brain. It kind of surface as you're coming. Oh, this is an idea. It's like,
oh my God, this like informed me as a person. It's really weird. But yeah, other than that, you watch anything?
didn't enjoy John Wick 4. I'll tell you that much.
I was looking forward to that. Now I probably won't watch it
Watch it when it comes on streaming sometime. I don't know how that movie's sitting at 94%. It's 2 hours and 49 minutes. I'm just like, what?
because people like Keanu Reeves.
I
Like
mean,
he's like his like likable meme has turned into
yeah. I mean, it's Keanu.
his
I'm on
persona.
board. I'm on board, but the movie is just too long. They're getting too drawn into setting up sequels and prequels and TV shows and lore, where you spend 2 hours a movie doing lore, and it's like, this isn't Lord of the Rings. Pump the brakes.
Yeah.
It's an action movie where the guy's shooting everyone in the head 3 times. Like, just
Yeah, well, yeah, they're building it out, right?
it's a money machine now. So that's
All
it.
right, dude.
All right, well, that's our episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, pass along to someone who you think might also enjoy it. If you've got any topic ideas or feedback, you can still find us on Twitter at writer_syndrome. We're on Instagram now, too.
Oh,
Yeah, Writer Syndrome Books. So go check that out. There'll be more posts and stuff coming up. We're going to start cataloging our Writer Syndrome book club, the stuff we've been reading. So, and you can go to writersyndrome.com for all our other episodes and contact.
and you could
info.
go to russcapasso.com.
You could go to russcapasso.com and sign up for a newsletter and find out what the hell I'm working on, and see pictures
Be the
of,
first to receive the inaugural newsletter.
yeah, and get photos of not my dog. I'll
Wait,
put photos of my
hold on.
friend's
What about a
dogs.
free book?
Free book? Whoa! Free book? What are you, crazy, man?
I think I read that somewhere that like give a book giveaways, right?
Yeah, I got to write another one to give it away for free. Damn, I got to pay
No,
rent. I got to pay rent. Okay.
You get the first half for free.
I get first half for free. Yeah. Yeah, that is a thing. Reader magnets. I might have some fun stuff actually tied to the book that I will offer for people if they sign up for the newsletter. So coming probably in the coming months. It won't be a full book, but it'll be some, I think, some fun stuff. I'm just going to include that's part of all the lore.
Maybe some spreadsheet templates.
Ooh, you want a free sprint? All right, enough of this. Enough of this tomfoolery.
All right, man.
Join us next episode. Until next time, keep writing.